Hi, my loves. Welcome back to my channel where we celebrate our unique expression of perfection. Because God didn't make duplicates. And the moment you measure yourself against the world, you hand your power away. I'm Brooke Taylor, and today we're talking about who you are versus who you've been taught to be. Chapter 1: The false identity women are living from. Most women are not struggling because they are not valuable. They are struggling because they have been trained to build their identity from the outside in. And this is the first false belief we have to expose. The belief that being desired means you are valuable, being chosen means you are worthy, or being approved of means you are feminine, and being wanted means you are enough. Culture has taught women to chase being chosen instead of becoming rooted. And social media has made this even worse because now a woman can measure her worth by views, likes, comments, male attention, body comparison, relationship status, and how well she performs the version of femininity that gets rewarded online. So a lot of women think they are looking for love, but if they are honest, what they are really looking for is proof that they are enough. And that is why one inconsistent man can have so much power over her nervous system, because his attention starts feeling like confirmation. And then whenever he becomes distant, his distance starts feeling like rejection. This shows up in real life when she checks if he watched her story, rereads his text for hidden meaning, changes her personality to seem more desirable, or becomes softer only to be accepted. Sometimes we may over-explain ourselves when he pulls away. I literally remember myself just a couple of weeks ago over-explaining myself when it was not needed. Some women may compete with other women or lower her standards because she wants to be picked, or even starts to ask, what does she have that I don't? Instead of asking, why am I placing my identity in someone who does not even have the capacity to cover me? Psychologically, this is what happens when identity gets built through attachment wounds, conditioning, comparison, and inconsistent validation. The woman becomes externally referenced, which means she does not move from truth. She moves from feedback. And instead of asking, who did God create me to be? She starts to ask, how am I being perceived? We've all been there before. But that is why I say when a woman does not know who she is, she will confuse attention with confirmation. Because attention can touch your ego, but it cannot establish your identity. Biblically, Psalms 139 says, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, which means your identity was not created in the marketplace of culture. It was created in the mind of God. And Proverbs 31 says that the virtuous woman's price is far above rubies, which means her value is not produced by a man choosing her. Her value is recognized by a man with the discernment to actually see it. You do not become valuable when you are desired. You do not become feminine when a man approves of you. You also do not become worthy when someone finally commits to you. And you do not become powerful because you can get attention. You become powerful when you stop needing attention to confirm what God already established. A woman who lives from this truth moves differently. She does not chase clarity from confused men. She does not perform softness while abandoning herself. She does not compete for a seat in a life that has no vision, and she does not mistake anxiety for chemistry. We've all been there before. Because she understands that love should not require her to lose herself in order to be chosen. She can be beautiful without being desperate, feminine without being performative, open without being needy, and discerning without being bitter. So what I want you to get from this first chapter is that I was created before I was desired, and I was valuable before I was chosen. I was seen by God before I was noticed by man. And I do not have to perform for the kind of love that requires me to abandon the woman God created me to be. Let's dive into chapter 2. Social media teaches perform femininity. The biblical truth of identity matters because social media has really trained many women to confuse the appearance of femininity with the formation of femininity. And this is the false belief that we have to expose. The next false belief. The belief that if a woman looks soft enough, speaks gently, dresses beautifully, or posts aesthetically enough and performs the right feminine behaviors, then she has become the woman God called her to be. But this is not true. Femininity is not a costume. It is not a content category. And it is not an aesthetic you put on to be chosen. Femininity is the overflow of a woman who is internally ordered. A woman can look soft and still be operating from fear and still be manipulative. She can dress beautifully and still be deeply insecure. She can post all about standards and still abandon herself the moment an inconsistent man gives her attention. Because performed femininity asks, how do I look feminine enough to be chosen? While embodied femininity asks, how do I become whole enough to love, build, discern, and receive correctly? This shows up in real life when a woman studies how to be softer for a man, but never studies why she becomes anxious when he pulls away. Or when she learns how to cook, dress, smile, and speak with grace, but never learns how to regulate her emotions. Psychologically, this actually happens because performance feels safer than actual transformation. Everyone wants a quick fix. Performance lets a woman control how she is perceived, but formation requires her to confront who she actually is. And if her identity has been shaped by comparison, rejection, abandonment, or male validation, she will naturally try to look like the woman who gets chosen instead of becoming the woman who is rooted enough to choose wisely. That is why I keep mentioning Psalms 139 because it is so important. Because when David says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made, he is describing a person whose value began in the intentional design of God. And Proverbs 31 shows us that the virtuous woman is not merely beautiful, agreeable, or desirable. She is valuable, disciplined, wise, fruitful, trustworthy, generous, industrious, and spiritually grounded, which means biblical womanhood is not passive performance, but purposeful formation. The truth is, God is not asking you to become a more marketable version of femininity. He is calling you back into order, into wisdom, and into self-respect, as well as into discernment, fruitfulness, and softness that has substance and grace that has a backbone. A woman who embodies this does not perform peace while secretly living in chaos. She becomes peaceful because her identity is rooted. She does not perform softness to keep a man. She becomes soft because she is no longer at war with her internal self. She does not perform submission to be approved. She becomes capable of healthy submission because she has first submitted her identity to God. So the key that I want you to take from here is that I do not have to look like femininity while living from insecurity inside. I do not have to perform softness while betraying my truth. I do not have to copy culture's version of womanhood to be valuable. And I do not become a woman of worth when I'm chosen by a man, because I was already intentionally formed by God. My price is already far above rubies, and my femininity is not something I wear to be picked. It is something I become as I come back into divine order. Chapter 3, Trauma teaches women to earn love. And that is why it's so important to be able to recognize your trauma, because self-concept drives behavior. If a woman sees herself through insecurity, she will choose from insecurity. That's what a lot of women do, which is why it's so important to learn how to vet properly. The next truth we have to confront is this: Many women are not struggling in relationships because they lack discipline, standards, or knowledge, but because they are operating from a distorted self concept. And the false belief we must expose is the idea that love is something you earn through effort, sacrifice, and self abandonment, rather than something you align with through identity. Because when a woman sees herself through insecurity, she will inevitably choose from insecurity. And this is why you will see a woman who knows better still choose a man who confuses her, or still over explain when she is not understood, or still overgive when she is not being reciprocated. Some women may still chase when she is not being pursued. And you may see some women shrink herself just to maintain a connection. And if you are honest, you have felt this before. Even I have felt this before as I'm literally sitting here talking it out loud and saying it. But that moment where you knew something was off, but you stayed, that moment where you felt the anxiety in your body, but called it chemistry, that moment where you gave more, said more, or did more, hoping it would stabilize something that was never stable to begin with, because psychologically, what is happening is not weakness, but conditioning. As your self concept is shaped by your experiences, your relationships, the feedback you have received, the environments that you were raised in, and the love you were or were not given. And if a woman was taught either directly or indirectly that love is inconsistent or that affection must be earned, that presence can be withdrawn, or that her needs are just too much, she will build an identity that says, I have to work for love. And I think a lot of us have this identity. Even me, I had to notice that what I do, the more I do, does not mean that I am valued more. And from that identity, when a woman believes that she must work for love, she will begin to over explain to avoid abandonment, over give to feel needed, chase inconsistency because chaos feels familiar, shrink her standards to keep the connection, confuse anxiety with chemistry, and confuse being useful with being loved. And this is why I say some women are not submitting, they are surviving. Because what looks like submission on the outside can actually be a trauma response on the inside. And God never designed submission to come from fear, depletion, or instability. Because when we look at truth through scripture, we see that God is consistent. God is very intentional, and that God is not the author of confusion. And love that reflects Him does not require you to abandon yourself to receive it, which means if your love requires you to overwork, overthink, overgive, and override your discernment, you are not experiencing alignment. You are repeating a pattern. And the truth that we should replace this with is that you do not earn love by becoming smaller. You do not secure love by becoming more useful. And you do not maintain love by betraying yourself. But instead, you align with love by becoming whole, by becoming clear, by becoming more rooted in who you are. And a woman who embodies this moves differently because she does not rush to explain herself to someone who is committed to misunderstanding her. She does not overgive where there is no structure to hold her. And she does not chase what is inconsistent because she recognizes that instability is not attraction. She understands that standards are not barriers to love, but protectors of it. And she does not confuse emotional highs with genuine connection because she has learned the difference between nervous system activation and true peace. So, what I want you to get from this chapter is that I do not have to earn what God has already aligned for me. I do not have to abandon myself to be loved. I do not have to prove my worth through performance. I do not have to stay where there is confusion to feel chosen. And I am not a woman who survives love through anxiety. I am a woman who experiences love through alignment, clarity, and truth.